Conditions remain at peak intensity.
Damaging hail. Baseball-sized hail damages cars and more in Texas. Creek concerns. Just how high will the water rise in this city waterway?
We can't control the weather, and that's the one wild card.
On the hunt, we'll join metal detector fans as they search for treasures hidden in the ground.
Found something kind of different here, something oval-looking shape.
And sweet treat. A check to see if Michigan's summer cherries will be bountiful this year.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. Super Typhoon Mawar is starting to pull away from the U.S. territory of Guam this morning after lashing the island with 140-mile-per-hour winds and also some pounding rain. You can see from the radar loop just how big and powerful this storm is. The center of the storm passing over northern Guam is also moving slowly, increasing the threat of significant flooding. This video right here was taken as the storm arrived on Wednesday. This morning, the National Weather Service says up to 25 inches of rain could fall, and near the eye wall, seas were up to 45 feet. Most of the island is also without power this morning. And a Facebook Live this morning, a National Weather Service meteorologist in Guam said he can feel the storm inside of the building.
This building is vibrating. We have constant low rumbling. Our doors and windows are shaking. These are the peak conditions that we'll be experiencing. It's going to be another long night for all of us here as conditions remain at peak intensity, gradually subsiding once we get past midnight this evening.
The winds are so strong they knocked out the National Weather Service wind sensors. The good news is the storm is pulling away from Guam once again. Meteorologist Brian Mirando has brought how unusual this powerful storm is in that region.
It is pretty rare that a powerful storm this strong makes such a close impact with the actual island. There's only been 3 in history that have made landfall on the island that were super typhoons. The strongest was Karen in 1962. There's also Omar in 1992 and Pamela in 1976. All these storms were super typhoons, again, the equivalent of a Category 4 or 5 hurricane with winds above 130 miles per hour. Not only does this cause devastating damage, it also causes a lot of storm surge. On the western side of the island, they were expecting the storm surge to be up to about 3 feet, which would come up to about my waist. If I were to double that to 6 feet, that would already completely cover me up. However, on the eastern side of the island, they were expecting a storm surge potentially up to 15 feet. So not only was the storm very powerful, it was also very historic.
And this was the scene in West Texas last night. Our storm chaser, Brett Adair, was in Anton, about 100 miles south of Amarillo. There were reports of that right there, baseball-sized hail with heavy winds and rain. The risk of severe weather continues today with a chance of more rain, wind, and hail, and even some isolated tornadoes. Rain is helping firefighters battling wildfires in western Canada. More than 500 wildfires have already burned more than 3,600 square miles. It's the worst start to Canada's fire season on record. Unfortunately, all the rain could lead to flooding and maybe new fires from lightning strikes as well. The smoke has drifted south and east, bringing hazy skies to many U.S. communities. Meteorologist Brandon Lawson explains how it happens.
Now, those wildfires obviously are creating that smoke in the upper levels. Eventually, that smoke, it gets in the upper levels and it gets caught in the jet stream. And that allows that smoke to travel from west to east. And in some cases, with the jet stream, it can take that smoke around the globe a little bit here. Now, obviously, as that smoke gets here, it's not going to be as animated here as it would be in some areas closer to the wildfires in Canada. As a matter of fact, that smoke's so high up in the upper levels by the time it gets here, it's not creating any air quality issues for us, at least in this case. So that's some good news. As a matter of fact, these wildfire smoky conditions for our region have created some really nice and vivid sunrises and sunsets, especially if that smoke lines up well with some high thin cirrus clouds. This is the sunset I got the other day just because of those smoky conditions. You see that red hue of the sun. Also, if you're not a fan of heat, another way you can benefit from the smoke is the smoke can actually block out that solar radiation a little bit and can keep your temperatures a little lower as well. I'm meteorologist Brandon Lawson.
Salt Lake City is bracing for an onslaught of water after an historic winter snowfall is melting. Waters are rising at City Creek, where sandbags line the banks to hold back all of that flooding. You can see it right here. But Emma Riley says that's not the only way the city is preparing to deal with spring runoff, and the locals are stopping by to check things out.
This is the highest I've seen City Creek in the years I've lived here. It's been impressive. There were people kayaking down here over the weekend. That hasn't happened before, I don't think.
The city is predicting City Creek will reach its peak by this week. But contrary to 1983, they say they are equipped to handle it.
The peak flow is forecasted to be around 123 cubic feet per second, and the capacity of the system in that area is 220 cubic feet per second. So far, it looks like we'll be able to handle that capacity.
The preparation for this year's spring runoff has been strategic. Briefer says hydrologists, engineers, and maintenance crews have been working around the clock anticipating the flooding. So what has changed since the 80s? Quite a few things.
First of all, we have debris basins that will capture debris before they get brought down into the piped part of the system. So that mitigates that kind of a risk pretty well.
And the pipeline that collapsed in 1983 has since been replaced with a more efficient pipeline.
I would say that we're in really good shape right now. We can't control the weather, and that's the one wild card. But the infrastructure is in great shape. It's clean. We've been monitoring it. We have our stream teams out 24/7, making sure we don't have debris in the way.
Even residents have been returning to the park to do their own monitoring of the water levels.
It's a thrill to see the water coming down. I mean, there are actually rapids in City Creek, which you never see. So it's fun to monitor it.
A man is recovering after thousands of bees swarmed him, stinging him more than 250 times. It happened over the weekend outside of the man's home in Arizona while he was riding in his wheelchair exercise bike with his dog. Luzalia Caballero has the story.
John Fisher is all smiles.
I'm doing pretty good.
In fact, if you just hear his voice, you'd think he felt like $1 million.
I'm alive. I'm happy.
But as you take a closer look, you'll quickly notice
My mouth area is all swollen.
And Fisher has signs of bee stings all over his body.
Literally thousands. At least 1,000 on me and at least on the area.
Over the weekend, he was riding his wheelchair exercise bike with his dog Pippin like he usually does. Toward the end of his hike, when Fisher was about 1 minute away from home,
I thought there was a fly that was following us. I heard something buzzing. And I started, swatting at it. Bad idea, because the next thing I knew, we were surrounded by all these bees.
A neighbor's surveillance camera capturing the terrifying moments after Fisher let Pippin loose.
The next thing I knew, they were all over my arms, all over my face, all over my back. They were trying, and then it just became more and more intense.
The swarm wasn't visible from the camera, but bees could be seen and heard flying near the lens. At some point, first responders rushed in.
At which point, they were getting stung. And then all of a sudden, they started hosing me off. And the next thing I knew, I was in the ambulance. And
Fisher was stung more than 250 times. His dog stung too. Experts say when a swarm of bees attacks,
you're going to get hit on your arms, your legs, or whatever. But if you just cover up your face, cover up your ears, that's what you want to protect the most.
Other advice is to get inside as soon as possible or run in a straight line away from the bees. But for Fisher, that wasn't possible. He did cover up, though, which may have helped save his life.
A group of Green Bay, Wisconsin kindergartens got the chance to watch the conservation process in action. The Bay Beach Wildlife Sanctuary released a peregrine falcon, and the students got to witness it. The falcon had an injured wing and was found in Sheboygan last year. The bird was brought to the sanctuary about a year ago, but it has since healed and is now back in the wild. And take a look at these new satellite images that show the aftermath of flooding and storm damage in northern Italy. Right here, many farms, vineyards, and fields remain partially flooded and covered in mud. Meanwhile, recovery and construction crews are busy working on cleaning streets and removing storm debris. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, coastal erosion can pose a real threat to beachgoers. We'll have some tips and ways you can stay safe. And we'll head to Michigan for a look at how this year's cherry crop is coming along.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti. You look to the northeast. We have a little bit of wet weather moving into the northeast today. That will move in primarily during the afternoon. Here we are about midday or so. We're seeing some wet weather in northern New England and also into the Adirondacks in New York. It arrives over southern New England and generally coastal zones during the late day hours and more so towards the evening. There may even be a rumble of thunder. The wind shifts over to the northwest. We'll get a stiff northwest wind in the northeast on Thursday, and temps look seasonably cool in the 60s.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region, starting off with comfortable temperatures in the 50s to near 60 by about 9 a.m. Up and down the 95 corridor, well up into the 70s as we head into the afternoon on Wednesday, maybe even touching around 80 degrees. Notice a cooler air trying to move in from the north. Won't make a whole lot of inroads, but could shave a few degrees off in temperatures as we head into the end of the week. And that weather maker, a cold front, could provide a stray shower, especially north Wednesday night. That's the scene here.
I'm meteorologist Vetus Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs for the day. We're looking at 79 degrees in Charleston, about 76 Raleigh, 80 in Atlanta, 82 Birmingham, Nashville, 85 degrees Pensacola, 79 degrees, 86 West Palm. Looks like we will see plenty of sunshine through parts of the Carolinas, a few remaining showers early on southern Georgia, but down in Florida, it looks like we're going to see afternoon showers and thunderstorms. A lot of activity down there, but for most areas in the Carolinas, back towards the Tennessee Valley, looking pretty clear.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
More land and water is available for public state leaders, and it's cause for celebration. Eric Peterson has the story.
From a lone mallard duck on a log to a fresh family of waterfowl paddling nearby. The waters of Green Bay near Duck Creek have a lot to offer.
Spring's a great time of year because there's so many birds passing through. That kind of, you're down here and it's sort of alive with a really wide variety of birds.
Howard Village Administrator Paul Everett says this 113-acre site is now in the hands of the public. The cost of the new property is $280,000. Ducks Unlimited, the Fox Valley Community Foundation, the Village of Howard, and Bird City Green Bay are paying half. A DNR Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant will cover the other half. Bureau Director Jim Ritchie says he's impressed.
I think it's beautiful. I'm really excited about the property and the fact that this has been kind of a missing piece. It's a missing link between public ownership on either side with the City of Green Bay, DNR lands just to the north, and now it's a contiguous public ownership that's available for recreation and habitat purposes.
There's a substantial amount of shoreline miles that are in public trust that'll be preserved for future generations to enjoy and for our migratory friends to pass through and stop and get renourished when they have to.
In Oregon, folks are ready to get on the water at Detroit Lake. There was concern that the lake would not have enough water for recreational use ahead of the upcoming holiday weekend, but a lot has changed in the past few weeks. Megan Allison has that story.
This video from early April shows just how low Detroit Lake was 6 weeks ago. It's a drastic difference to the current picture as Canes Marina gets ready for summer. The owner here says his team scrambled to get docks ready for Memorial Day.
They're getting them on the water, getting them connected, and putting that together. We built 70 new fingers this last winter, so we had quite a bit of floating material to get down there on the water.
This comes as the community continues to rebuild from the 2020 wildfires that devastated the Santiam Canyon.
And we will be rebuilding our facilities here.
Earlier this spring, the Army Corps of Engineers told me they needed a, quote, Hail Mary weather pattern to fill up this lake.
April was a good month for precipitation all the way around. We had both rain and snow in April. And then when May hit, we had some of that warm weather. The snow had a bigger impact on the reservoir and on refill than our models typically shows.
Eric Peterson says he understands the frustration in Detroit as the Army Corps manages water levels at the dam.
We are undertaking a study this year and over the next several years to do something called forecast-informed reservoir operations.
Peterson says that will look at the predictability of atmospheric rivers to see if there's more flexibility around risk management for water control.
And there are other concerns when it comes to enjoying the water during the warmer months. Meteorologist Christina Ernie recently explained on TikTok that in Rhode Island, beach erosion is an issue for those looking for a little bit of summer fun.
Summertime is almost upon us. We're ready to head outside, throw on the sunglasses, and, well, head down to the beach. But we've experienced some significant erosion over the past winter that have left us beachgoers needing to be a little bit more cautious.
For one, this erosion has dug away at dunes that have stood for hundreds of years in some cases. Pipes that run under the dunes are now being exposed, some of them rotted, making them dangerous for children running around on the beach. Other items long buried, fishing lures, ropes, wires, well, they're under there too. And a shrinking beach puts you in closer proximity to them at high tide. These dunes are where sensitive species also thrive, like the piping plover. Hurting them hurts us in return.
Many of us think about jumping into the closest body of water as it gets warmer outside, but others are thinking a little bit outside the box, doing something called metal detecting. It's one of the fastest growing hobbies in the U.S. So Charleston, West Virginia meteorologist Brandon Stover met up with a group of metal detectors to find out more about this very unique pastime.
The top layer of our Earth is only a very small portion of it. Underneath, there's history. That's what got Chad Good into metal detecting.
There's a lot of hidden history here because at one time this was Virginia, not West Virginia at one point. So the history goes back beyond what we think of. So at one time this was just considered the wilderness. Found something kind of different here, something oval looking shaped.
Finding historical objects may be their main goal, but they've also found some of their own childhood toys and even special items brought back to others that were thought to have been lost for good.
That's a pendant with what appears to be a Roman soldier on it, and it was found in an 18 from back in the 40s, probably the 30s. Yeah, this stirrup here, we believe it to probably be around Civil War era.
The group also finds their fair share of coins.
Nope, that's a quarter. Coins are really cool to find, not just because of the material they're made of. It gives you a date to when somebody lost that item. Say you find an item from the 1800s. You can guess when that item was there, when it was dropped, and it has been there through every major event in history until the time you picked it up.
Good says the thrill of finding something new is hard to top, but has some advice if you're looking to start a new hobby.
You need to get some permits to go on certain types of land, like state-owned land, federal land, etc. You don't just want to go to a historical site and just start digging because you can get in trouble. Private landowners, and get permission from private landowners because we want to make sure it's okay with them. We try to do as much of a professional job as we can, make sure all the holes are filled back in when we're finished and make it look like we were never there.
In northern Michigan, rows of cherry trees are in full bloom, making for some beautiful views. Meteorologist Heather Brooker takes a look at how the crops are shaping up as they get closer to producing fruit.
This was the view on the Leelanau Peninsula last week. The cherry orchards in full bloom. The trees are now in the petal fall stage where the petals fall down and the fruit starts to grow. The big question now is how much can we expect for this year?
At this stage of the game, it's pretty early with knowing the estimate of what size of our crops, but I think in sweet cherries, we're in bloom a long time and we had a cold stretch there. So we may have fewer sweet cherries, but they're still a good crop. And when I look on that tree, I can see fruit. Even if you're cruising by in your truck, you can see it.
It's been very dry across northern Michigan the last few weeks, which is a good thing for the trees.
Less infection for diseases, so that kind of slows that infection period.
Farmers say that even though the petals have fallen, frost is still a concern.
Frost could still do damage. The leaves that are coming out on the trees now will give some protection, especially to the flowers kind of underneath them. but they are still susceptible to frost.
After the petal fall stage is...
We call it coming out of the shuck. The part of the flower that holds the petals has the little fruit developing down inside it, and as that grows, that will shed the shuck, it's called, the part that holds the petals. And then we can really see what cherries are developing, and we'll get a better sense.
Time now for a short break. As we soar over Bitterroot Valley in Montana.
Good Wednesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buckmichael taking a look at your weather story across the Midwest. We got a few pockets of rain today, but most of the Midwest staying dry. It is cooling off, though, for the Great Lakes, and that cooler air filters down into the Ohio Valley for tomorrow. So we've got a lot of 70s and some 80s out in the plains. Look at that, though. Only 58 for the high tomorrow in Milwaukee. A lot of sunshine returning as we head into Friday, with rain starting to sneak in from the west later in the day on Friday.
Good Wednesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Chris Suchan. Our forecast today across the region, and we are on the lookout for a heavier storm or two in parts of Texas, where we work our way through the afternoon. Could see a few scattered heavy storms. Otherwise, it's the 80s, dry weather New Orleans into Little Rock. Heading into Thursday's forecast, and again, a scattering of a few storms in spots. Otherwise, a lot of sunshine and a seasonably hot day. We're not looking at excessively hot temperatures.
Well, hi, everybody, and a good Wednesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. Starting to see some real warmth out west combining with afternoon thunderstorms. That'll certainly be the case for Salt Lake City, Vegas, and into Albuquerque as temps range anywhere from the 80s to the triple digits, and that chance for thunder and lightning remains. On the other hand, a perfect 77 in the Rose City of Portland, Oregon today. And again, thunder and lightning starting to bubble up over the Wasatch. And that's the scene from here.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Verdant is the word of the day for Concho Rim Overlook. This beautiful vista is one of many at New River Gorge National Park and Preserve in West Virginia. Also in the Mountain State, these photos from a weather balloon launched by a teacher at Wheeling Country Day School. It's a yearly event, and these photos show the city of Wheeling and the haze of wildfire smoke drifting from Canada.
Want to see your weather photos and videos on TV? Click Chime In on this station's website to share.
Some good news in California when it comes to wildfires. Several counties are seeing a decline in devastating wildfires. Municipality found out more favorable weather conditions helped in this situation, along with exclusive use of a helicopter used to attack fires early on.
Butte County is seeing a decline in large, devastating wildfires. That's according to a new CAL FIRE annual report for 2022. The report touches on things like the number of medical calls as well as the number of hazardous material calls. The biggest takeaway is the county actually saw a decrease in the number of acres burned. According to the report, the county saw a little over 1,000 acres burn.
And we'd love to connect with you. You can find us on all of your favorite social media platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. Water levels are rising once again on Lake Powell. Tomorrow on the National Weather Desk, we'll take a look at whether the lake can make a full comeback. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Wednesday. And we'll see you right back here tomorrow. Captioner.